Okay. They recently made Nick Joaquin's biopic available online. This was a month ago in Cinema One, their YouTube channel. I think it's called docudrama technically because it's a combination of a dramatic depiction of Nick's life along with testimonials from close friends and family. The film's title is Dahling Nick, and it was great. We need more films like it. I think we have enough of romantic films and Korean films lately. Films like Dahling Nick are precious and few, so we better go out and support them when they come out. Since I live abroad, I wasn't able to see it on the big screen, so I'm thankful for the people that did made it available for gratis online. The director made it interesting. It was a long film, so the colorful depiction complemented the documentary part. And funny story is that I had a kind of weird but brief interaction with the director. Her name is Sari Dalena. She sent me an email before for featuring of her film and using footage that she did not permit. This was many years ago. So I took it down, and this was with my first YouTube channel. It's no longer active. And I just wanted to share that movie with people, and I got too excited, took liberties and all that. It was a long time ago. I don't even remember what's the title of that documentary. Too bad not a lot of people saw it. Where am I going with this? Yeah. So I know this director is good, so I wasn't surprised that Dahling Nick hit the right notes. Of course, everything here is my personal opinion. I had a friend who wasn't happy with how Nick was portrayed in the film. He was this loud, gay, outgoing person, but I've always felt that he was like that. It was unfortunate that I never met him in person. His former office was literally a few blocks away from my childhood home. But I think it's good in a way because what they say, never meet your heroes. You can never really put everything in everything about a person in a film. So I understand that there will be limitations, but I was kind of disappointed that Nick Joaquin as a Filipino historian was almost absent in the movie. We get the artist, the journalist, and the interaction with Marcos and his man during martial law were the film's focus, I think. Nick Joaquin accepting the National Artist Award so the administration would release a well-known writer, a friend of his, was the main scene that probably will stick in viewers' mind. The film needed a villain. It was Marcos and his martial law. I understand that. There's nothing wrong with all this. Of course, the man really lived an interesting life. There's a reason why we're still reading and watching everything about him. So going back to that award, that scene, if there was anything that scene proved, it was that Nick was a loyal person. A distant relative of mine, Don Guillermo Gomez, is a friend of Nick. I heard how he was with friends. He said it's always had a soft spot for them. He told me that he is eccentric, he's authentic, he's all that, but Gomez said he's like this because he was a man trapped in the past and he was unwilling to accept what his old Filipino world has become. This is what made him great, I think. He was able to articulate the beauty of the genuine Filipino culture and history, the one he learned from his parents and the community he grew up in. Not too many people would have this because not only are we from an Americanized world, we already lost the ability to speak Spanish, and most of us at least. And that's the language of the greatest generation that gave birth to this nation. And going back to a funny story from Gomez, he once played Don Perico, character in Joaquin's Portrait of an Artist. He told me that Nick at one time got so drunk in one of their performances that you could hear the man howling and shouting in the background. It was hilarious. He was enjoying himself. He said maybe too much. I've read all of his work in Filipino history. It's not really a stretch to say that he is as good, not better than many popular historians, most of which have their books are standard text in our schools. Nick's history book will never make it to our schools, but I think that's all right. His other works are already mainstays in literature classes. The man understood Filipino Hispano culture and language to its core. He lived it. By the way, the retelling of his early life in the film was outstanding because that I really enjoy. I think that gave everyone a snippet why he is the way he is. To end, let me read from historian Resl Mujar's book, Interrogations in Philippine Culture and History. It is said about Joaquin, it can be said that everything he wrote, including his fiction plays, was marinated in a strong sense of time and place, which is what historical thinking means. A historian writing for a general readership, sans footnote, Nick wrote articles on topical issues, the most important of which were interventions in an ongoing discourse and engagement current thinking on Philippine society and history. He took the role of a devil's advocate, title he gave to a collection of his essay. He grew up in a time that saw deep dislocations wrought by the American-Japanese occupations, which threatened the imaginary world of his father and grandfathers with irrelevance and extension. Not sure why Muharas referred to that epoch as imaginary. It's interesting. Okay, gotta continue. We have said that in the Naval de Manila, 1943, his first historical article, Nick was already playing the devil's advocate, delivering an apology for Spain at the time when this was not popular. When Nick was growing up, Spain had become an unlamented relic of the past, condemning the image of the dark age of medievalism, dominated by rapacious and intolerant friars, a black legend promoted by the American-inspired historiography that established a binary opposition between the liberal and modern us on the one hand and a medieval and decrepit Spain on the other. Hang on, we're getting close to the end. At a time when intellectuals assumed an optimism, or were obliged to, about the new order, Nick published in Philippine Review a short story, It Was Later Than We Thought. This one I love this one. This was in 1943, about the disenchantment that leads one of the characters to lament how progress is a relentless tide in which people are caught living upon the shore, dead weeds, dungs, rubbish, shipwrecks, and corpses. So with man's principalities, they come and go. Nick took up in his historical writing the question of Filipino identity and the character of the Philippine Revolution. He meant by his writings, he said, ask those pesky questions which, though they seem so obvious, have somehow never been asked about our history and culture, and thus open up fresh viewpoints on the national process. Again, in essentializing indigenism, Nick argued for a conception of culture as a hybrid and ever mutated, describing Filipinos as a work in progress whose national identity is a dynamic product of the various cultural influences in history. He debunked the idea of pure native culture and lamented the denigration of the Western influence. Well, there it is. Nick lives, my friends. Contra mundum. Until next time. Bye.